The ground of Calixar VII was scorched ash and bone, raw, jagged, and red beneath a pale, corrosive sky. Once a bustling mining colony of humanity's outer reach, the planet had become a no-man's land. A corpse hung between two species, locked in a war no one remembered how to end. The air was thick with chloride gas. It hissed through shattered helmets and split rock like a serpent looking for blood. And blood there was, in the midst of a collapsed ravine, tangled with twisted steel and smoking bodies. A 9-meter-tall beast writhed in agony. Bone Crusher, the soldiers called them. Apex bioweapons of the Growlithe, skeletal titans bred for one purpose: eradication. Its exoskeleton shimmered with metallic cartilage, cracked and oozing thick black fluid. 3 of its limbs had been sheared off by artillery. The 4th twitched. Nearby, the last human squad had already begun fallback protocol. The override countdown for an orbital plasma strike blinked red across every helmet visor. T-minus 82 seconds. And that's when she ran in **. No weapon, no body armor. Just a medic's bag slung over her shoulder, and a glint in her eye that looked far more dangerous than any plasma rifle. Dr. Aeon Kara **. Field designation Echo 3, sprinted across open ground as if gunfire were a memory. Bullets and shrieks echoed behind her. No one shouted after her. They'd learned not to try. The beast was thrashing in slow motion now, the kind of pain that's already claimed the body and is negotiating with the soul. It saw her. One massive, fractured eye rotated toward the tiny human approaching its jaw. Aeon did not stop. She skidded to her knees just beneath its snarling mouth, dust cloud rising. Her left palm went flat against the creature's thorax, its chest plate of bone and sinew, while her right hand unzipped. Her kit with surgical precision. Inside the half-shattered exoshell, the creature's heartbeat was spasmodic. But it was a heartbeat. She leaned in, forehead nearly touching the split cartilage, and whispered, "I know you're in there. I don't want to be your enemy." The comms were screaming in her ear, "Echo 3, what are you doing? Retreat. The strike is locked in, you have 40 seconds. She didn't answer. Instead, Aeon extracted a spool of hyperthread, woven smart filament that bonded on contact with living tissue, and began stitching the open wound at the junction between thoracic armor and abdominal membrane. The Bone Crusher growled, a bass sound that rumbled across the valley like thunder under flesh. But it didn't attack, it didn't move. Her gloved fingers were soaked in alien ichor. Still she worked, lips pressed tight, eyes scanning for signs of arterial collapse. Echo 3 abort, plasma inbound, that's an enemy target, still no answer. The behemoth's single remaining eye didn't blink, it simply stared down at her. As if, impossibly, it recognized the hands that were saving it. Not as a medic, but as something else, something ancient. Something shared. 20 seconds, Aeon finished the stitch, pressed a bio-seal along the wound. Then slowly, deliberately, she stood. Her boots crunched against shattered ground. Blood, red and black, mixed at her feet. She stepped back, met the creature's eye again. And then the Bone Crusher bowed **, a movement so alien it defied instinct. A being bred for war, for fury, for annihilation, lowered its massive skull until it hovered just above the cracked earth before her. Not a gesture of defeat, a gesture of ** submission **. Aeon activated her comm, voice shaking. "Cancel the strike." Echo 3 say again, "Cancel the strike, target has surrendered." Silence, a beat, 2, then static hissed through the channel, followed by a disbelieving voice. "Surrendered. You stitched a monster's wound and it bowed to you. Are you out of your... Look at your damn drones. Look at your satellite feed. It's not moving, it's not attacking. It's kneeling. 10 seconds left. The override required 2 commanding officers and an AI safety lock. Aeon's fingers trembled, not with fear but with clarity. If you drop that bomb, you're not killing a monster. You're killing the first bridge we've ever built. The satellite feed confirmed. The bone crusher remained bowed, unmoving, and for the first time in 12 years of planetary conflict, the orbital plasma strike was aborted. The explosion never came. All that remained was a crater of silence. A medic standing in the wreckage of war, a beast kneeling before her, and a planet that, for a moment, forgot it was a battlefield. Before she was a field medic on a war-torn planet, Aeon Kara was a neural surgeon on Earth, one of the best. At 32, her name had been listed among the top researchers in neuroplasticity and emotional signal mapping. She'd once been courted by private biotech giants for contracts worth more than some governments' GDPs. But those days died the same night her brother almost did. His name was Kalen, younger by 5 years, infantry deployed to an outer moon skirmish, wounded in an ambush. Not mortally, not immediately, but he lay there paralyzed and alone. For 4 hours before a med drone marked him as non-recoverable and moved on to others with better odds. He survived barely, but something inside him didn't. And something inside her cracked too. Aeon left Earth that year, resigned from the prestigious Neuroemotive Institute, burned her contracts, donated her research to the UN Medic Corps. She didn't want compensation, she wanted deployment. When asked why a top-tier brain surgeon wanted to crawl through trenches, she simply said, "Because the machines have forgotten what pain feels like." I haven't. What they didn't know, what almost no one knew, was that Aeon possessed something no scanner or AI could mimic. A gift, a curse. When she touched someone, she could feel their nervous system, not just physically but emotionally. She could sense pain before it was verbalized, feel synaptic failure like a second heartbeat, detect fear buried under trauma before it surfaced. It wasn't telepathy. She couldn't hear thoughts or read minds. It was more primal than that. It was raw input, unfiltered signals pulsing through flesh and electricity. And she hated it, but she never turned away from it. On Calixar VII, the war had stripped meaning from uniforms. Everyone wore the same scorched gray. Even her medic patch was charred beyond recognition. She preferred it that way. No labels, no ranks, just action. Still, some didn't forget. Sergeant Harrow, for example. A grizzled war dog with more scars than smiles, and an unshakable disdain for anything that didn't carry explosives. He watched Aeon unpack her med kit beside the mess hall one evening, the hum of distant artillery bouncing off rusted walls. "You think that little bag's gonna save you when a bone crusher rips through this sector?" Aeon didn't flinch. She was threading surgical adhesive into her gloves dispenser. "No," she replied flatly, "but it might stop them from ripping through the next one." "What are you, some kind of preacher now? Gonna heal the monsters into pacifists?" She turned, looking him in the eye, not with defiance, but with an exhaustion that carried conviction. "You fight to kill, I work to stop the need to fight. We're both expendable, Sergeant, I just choose how." He scoffed and left, but he didn't argue again. Aeon's days were a cycle of blood, breath, pressure, and instinct. She learned to patch holes with her eyes closed, to suture in zero gravity, to jolt a heart back to rhythm with nothing but her palm and a whispered thought. But it wasn't until the day of the spinal boy that her squad began to truly look at her differently. Private Lance, barely 19, fresh out of Earthside Academy, was caught in a pressure blast during a dome collapse. A shard of steel tore through his armor and severed his lower spinal cord. By the time Aeon reached him, he was convulsing, half-conscious, screaming that he couldn't feel his legs. The squad medic scanned the injury and shook his head. Spinal breach, severed clean. We can't do anything without evac. He's done. They moved to sedate him. Aeon stepped in. Back off, doctor, he's hemorrhaging. We don't have. I said back off. She knelt beside Lance, ignoring protocol, and pulled off her gloves. Her bare hand pressed against the boy's exposed spine, slick with blood. She closed her eyes. There it was, the screaming, not from his mouth, but from the neural jungle inside him. Nerve endings short-circuiting, synaptic echoes crashing into blank space. The spinal cord wasn't dead. It was disconnected. She inhaled sharply, then exhaled as if casting a spell. Her fingers traced invisible paths, reconnecting signals the body had given up on. She didn't move the metal, she didn't heal flesh, but she did something no machine could. She taught the neurons to remember their path. 30 seconds later, Lance stopped screaming. 1 minute later, he twitched his toe. 2 minutes later, he whispered, "I can feel it." Silence engulfed the squad. One of the techs dropped their scanner. The other medic just stared. No one said thank you. They didn't know what to say. They just looked at her as if they'd never really seen her before. Back in her quarters that night, if the bent metal room could be called that, Aeon sat alone. Her hands still trembled. She stared at her palms. Not with pride, not with fear, but with resignation. She didn't want to be worshipped. She didn't want to be noticed. She just didn't want another brother left behind. Her mission was never about heroism. It was about stopping the silence that followed when pain was ignored. And deep down she knew, no matter how much she tried to stay human, her ability, her curse, would one day place her not beside the soldiers, but before the monsters. At 03:11 local time, the early warning array at Outpost Delta Phi went red. Thermal sensors picked up multiple heat signatures emerging from the dust wall that ringed the southern desert, the Expanse. Only one species on Calixar VII moved like that in formation. Bone crushers, 10 of them according to the drone feed. Moving together, slow and deliberate, heading toward the ridge just 14 kilometers from the human encampment. But there was something strange. One of them lagged behind. Damaged, limping, alone, Aeon was already in the medbay when the alarm sounded. She wasn't part of the tactical team. They didn't loop her into battle plans. But she had eyes and instincts and something else, something no radar could register. It began as a shimmer behind her eyes, not pain, not sound. A pulse, like someone knocking on the inside of her skull. She dropped the diagnostic pad, her breath caught. For a moment, she thought it was a seizure aura. Stress had triggered them before. But no, this was different. The sensation was external. A mental whisper, wordless but urgent. Not a thought, just a wave of need. And fear. Her hand instinctively brushed the metal bulkhead. She closed her eyes, tuning herself to the frequency that only she could feel. It wasn't human, but it was sentient, alive, and terrified. She didn't wait for clearance, didn't ask for permission. Aeon grabbed her gear, locked the seal on her rebreather, and slipped past the outer gates under the guise of field diagnostics. She'd done it before. No one questioned the medic's obsession with scouting toxins. Let them think she was reckless. They weren't entirely wrong. Outside the dome, the wind hit like ash-soaked fire. The expanse stretched out in every direction, a sea of fractured glass dunes and ancient mining skeletons. She walked for over 20 minutes before the signal grew stronger, until it flooded her senses like a migraine without pain. She followed it to the edge of a ravine carved by old terraforming drills. And then she saw it, a bone crusher, alone, collapsed halfway across a boulder field, its hind leg bent at an unnatural angle. Chunks of exoskeletal plating were missing. A gaping wound pulsed near its spine, dark fluid pooling beneath. Aeon crouched low, heart hammering. It hadn't noticed her. Or didn't care. She took a cautious step forward, then another. Her hand slowly extended, ***, not in challenge, but in offering. The pulse in her mind surged. She made contact. Her palm touched its flesh, wet, broken, vibrating with pain. And then everything inside her lit up. A storm of signals, neurons firing erratically, pain receptors fried. Limbic centers flooded. It was like being plugged into a dying star. She staggered, nearly fell to her knees, but beneath the chaos was something else. No hostility, no aggression, just suffering and abandonment. Aeon blinked. She suddenly understood. It had been wounded by humans. And its own kind had left it behind. She ran a scan. The exoskeletal fracture was recent, torn open by railgun rounds, judging by the alloy traces. And yet this creature, this war machine, ***, had not lashed out. She whispered aloud, even though she knew it wouldn't understand the words. "You're not here to fight anymore, are you?" The bone crusher didn't move. But its eyes slowly turned toward her. Back at the outpost, things had escalated. Drone patrols spotted Aeon's unauthorized excursion. Comms officers picked up trace signal of neural interference. And someone finally ran a high-band thermal feed. She was seen, kneeling beside the enemy. Sergeant Harrow's voice filled the command center. "She's made contact with an active threat. All units prepare to launch a Class 3 purge strike." The order was signed in under 60 seconds. Tactical drones began their deployment pattern. A plasma bomb was primed. Aeon's comm crackled violently in her ear as she worked to stabilize the wound. "Echo 3, what the hell are you doing out there? Back off immediately. I'm not leaving it. You've got less than 10 minutes before the strike hits." Then pause the countdown. "That's not your call. It's not hostile. I can * feel it. It's an enemy combatant, Aeon." "No, it's not. Not right now. You think you're some kind of alien whisperer now. I think I'm the only one listening." She knew she didn't have time for argument. She needed proof. Aeon activated her wrist feed recorder, began transmitting live vitals, neural pulse rates, lack of aggression markers. Evidence of collapsing systems. She kept her voice level but firm. "This creature is not engaged in combat. It is not attacking. It's not even resisting. It's dying. And for some reason, it reached out to me." A long pause followed, then Harrow again. "You expect me to call off a purge based on your hunch?" "No," she replied. "I expect you to watch." She stood, backed away slowly from the bone crusher. Then raised her hands in the air. The beast watched her. And then, inch by inch, it lowered its head ***, a motion deliberate. A gesture almost ritualistic. It bled, it trembled. But it bowed. Aeon's voice came through the comms again. This time quiet, final. "It's not a monster, it's asking to be spared." The countdown hit 4 minutes. Decision time. Would the humans drop fire? Would the monster strike back? Or had something neither side planned, just begun? The moment Aeon pressed her bare hand against the beast's wound, she felt as if her nervous system had been thrown into a furnace. It wasn't just pain. It was ***, generational pain ***, embedded deep into the sinews of its biology. She didn't just feel the wound. She felt the memory stitched into it. The burning of containment fields, the sting of electrode collars, the sterile cold of human observation labs. But beneath it all, at the root of the agony, was something simpler. Abandonment. This creature, this so-called bone crusher, wasn't just wounded. It had been discarded, left to die by its own, and now, in its moment of helplessness, it had chosen her. Aeon unrolled her field kit with mechanical precision, fingers trembling not from fear, but from urgency. Every second mattered. The plasma strike was on hold, but that wouldn't last. Somewhere back at Outpost Delta Phi, the higher-ups were debating her fate like a currency. But here now she had one purpose: stitch the impossible back together. The spinal wound was deep, cartilage and neurofiber torn. One of the neural clusters that powered limb control was exposed, pulsing erratically like a broken star. She didn't have the tools, she didn't have the time. But she had her hands, and her gift. The bone crusher snarled as she inserted the first needle, an auto-threader. Designed for human muscular repair, the fabric snapped trying to pull through the titan's thick hide. She didn't flinch, just adapted, switched to plasma fusion mesh. Hand-welded it to the muscle. The creature groaned, a guttural vibration that shook the sand. Its massive claws scraped against stone. For a moment, Aeon thought it would lash out, swat her like a fly. But it didn't. Instead, its breathing slowed, its body stilled. And slowly it tilted its head downward, letting her work. She didn't speak. There was nothing to say that pain hadn't already whispered between them. Instead, she reached deeper, into torn muscle, into the exposed bundle of nervous tissue still sparking wildly. And there, she did what no human had ever attempted. She synced, not to control, but to *** share. Aeon closed her eyes and let her own neural frequency fall into resonance with the creature S. The feedback nearly broke her. Visions hit her like lightning. Chains, dissection tables, bright lights, and hollow voices. Human scientists observing, recording, probing. Bone crushers weren't born warriors, they were bred prisoners. Augmented, weaponized, forgotten, Aeon's body shook as tears streamed down her face. Her breathing matched the creature S, her hands, still moving, began suturing more precisely, as if her fingers remembered * how the tissue wanted to be healed. She wasn't just fixing it, she was * acknowledging it. Back at command, the feed from a nearby reconnaissance drone had gone live. Someone had linked Aeon's biocam to the main display. And everyone saw it, a human kneeling, a bone crusher submitting. And not a drop of bloodshed between them. General monitors froze. Several technicians stood silent, staring. Sergeant Harrow muttered under his breath. "What the hell?" One of the tacticians leaned forward. It's letting her touch it." The image spread like fire. Across internal networks, command channels, encrypted reports. What began as a scene of disobedience became something far more dangerous. Proof that the monsters weren't just monsters. An hour passed. Aeon didn't notice the blood on her arms anymore. She was focused on the final closure, binding severed nerve endings with bioresponsive thread. Embedding fusion patches over open vessels, using what little regenerative gel she had left to coat the wound. When she was done, she sat back. Her fingers ached. Her spine throbbed, but the creature's breathing was stable. She met its eye again. "Done," she whispered. The bone crusher blinked slowly. Then, with effort, it pulled its body into a seated position. Its weight shook the earth. Aeon didn't move, and that was when the second squad arrived. 3 soldiers crested the ridge, standard recon unit. They froze at the sight. Aeon crouched beside a behemoth, soaked in its blood. The beast towering over her awake. Their rifles went up. "Echo 3, move aside. Don't shoot," she shouted, voice hoarse. "That thing's hostile." "It's not." One of them toggled his comm. "We need authorization. Target is active and unrestrained." "Then restrain me," Aeon said quietly. Stepping in front of the bone crusher, they hesitated. And that's when it happened. The bone crusher moved. Not forward, not to attack, but * sideways, placing itself between Aeon and the rifles. Its arms lowered defensively. Not raised, it didn't roar. It didn't threaten, it * shielded her. Aeon's comm lit up with static. Then a command came through: stand down, no firing unless fired upon. The recon squad lowered their weapons slowly, eyes wide with disbelief. The temporary ceasefire was granted, 24 hours. That's all they were given, a full biological observation to justify sparing the creature's life. And Aeon-S, that night they camped in the ravine. The soldiers kept their distance, setting up temporary field lights and comm repeaters. Aeon stayed beside the creature. She cleaned her tools, rewrapped the dressing, and then finally she sat beside it, shoulder against the edge of its massive torso. She didn't speak. She didn't need to. The creature, still nameless to the rest of the world, seemed to breathe in rhythm with her now. She gave it a name softly under her breath: Thorn. Because even weapons have roots, even pain can grow into something more. And sometime in the stillness of night, as the moons of Calixar VII crossed overhead, Aeon closed her eyes and felt something strange, a flicker. A pulse not of pain, but of memory, not hers, theirs. Images flooded her mind in flashes: primitive forests, kinship between massive beasts, harmony shattered by the arrival of two-legged fire-bearers. Experiments, breakdowns, chains, hunger, rage, and finally, fear of being forgotten. Aeon opened her eyes. She wasn't afraid anymore. Not of Thorn, not of what lay ahead, only of what would happen if the people watching that drone feed refused to feel. What she now carried. The order came at dawn, broadcast across every frontline frequency, encrypted but unmistakable in tone. By mandate of the United Interstellar Command, all remaining Gralith-class biological entities are to be neutralized. No exceptions, no delays, all units prepare for full-scale eradication. Outpost Delta Phi fell into a tense silence. Not even the hum of comms dared to break it. Inside the tactical center, officers stood frozen over screens. No one said it aloud, but every eye slowly drifted to the same live drone feed: Aeon Kara, sleeping against the curved flank of a bone crusher. A Gralith, the one they called Thorn. Aeon woke to the sound of distant engines. A ripple in the dust. She opened her eyes. Thorn was already standing, wounded but alert. Its massive frame blocked the sunlight, casting her in shadow. She could feel its breathing shift, the neural signal behind its ribs tightening like coiled wire. And then she heard them: boots, metal, a thud hiss of a drop shuttle's ramp descending. A special containment unit, black armor, red visors, weapons that never asked questions. They were here for two things: the creature and her. She stood up slowly, chest tight. No time for negotiation. No tribunal. This was extraction. The squad fanned out, encircling her position with military precision. Thorn did not move. Its claws remained at its side, head low, body still. As if sensing the weight of the moment, the lead operative stepped forward. Dr. Aeon Kara, you are ordered to return with us for immediate cognitive review. The non-human entity will be euthanized on transport. Aeon didn't flinch. It's not resisting. Irrelevant. The directive is clear. It's submitted to your arrival. It didn't run. It didn't attack. Submission doesn't equal sapience. No, but pain does, and it feels it. I've seen it. I've felt it. We're not here for a debate. Just then, Thorn did something no one expected. It took one step forward. An knelt. Its knees hit the ground with a deep, resonant thum. Its head lowered in the same motion Aeon had seen before, only this time not to her. To them, to the soldiers, not in surrender but in recognition. Of authority, of judgment, of inevitability, one of the operatives hesitated. Another lowered his rifle, uncertain. And that's when Colonel Varen stepped from the rear of the group. An older man, grizzled, with streaks of gray in his beard and a hollow weariness behind his eyes. Rumor said he'd lost a daughter in the first Growlithe offensive. His hands had shaken since. He stepped between the soldiers, eyes fixed on Thorn. "You," he said, voice gravel-thin, "are supposed to be a mindless brute." No reply, just silence. "My daughter died screaming while your kind ripped through her convoy. So tell me, monster, why aren't you tearing us apart now?" Thorn didn't move. Didn't blink, just remained bowed. Aeon stepped forward. "Because it's not a monster, not anymore. Don't speak for it." "I'm not, I'm speaking with it." The colonel looked at her, jaw tight. "Why are you protecting it?" "Because once we made things like this, shaped them, tortured them, made them fight for us. And now one of them is kneeling, hoping we don't become what we once were." Silence. Wind whipped through the ravine, then Varen raised a hand. "Stand down." Weapons were lowered. Just like that, the execution order was **paused**. 24 hours. Again. Back on base, Aeon was placed under observation. Not in a cell, but in something worse. A cognitive evaluation chamber **, sterile walls, neural dampeners, no windows. Designed to test not just memories, but moral alignment. Whether a soldier's actions could still be considered **human**. A woman in gray robes interviewed her, flat voice. No emotion. "Why did you violate combat protocol?" "Because it wasn't combat anymore. You risked the lives of your squad for an enemy entity." "No, I risked mine. They had the choice to walk away." "Do you believe it has consciousness?" "I know it does." "Evidence?" Aeon slid a drive across the table. "Full neural sync data from my field recorder. Reflected empathy spikes. Delayed aggression responses. Presence of mirror neuron structures." The woman looked at her, one brow slightly raised. "You believe it feels guilt?" "No. Regret?" "No." "Then what?" Aeon leaned forward. "It feels remorse **. That's rarer. It didn't just feel what it did. It remembered what it caused **. The woman paused, then nodded. "Final question. Are you requesting a pardon on its behalf?" Aeon shook her head. "No, I won't ask for its forgiveness." "Then what do you ask?" She looked directly into the lens behind the wall. "I ask that we don't repeat the past. If there's even *1 being among them that can kneel without a collar, then we owe it a chance to stand beside us, not beneath us. Not as weapons, not as targets." A long silence. "You understand what you're risking?" "Yes, and if command denies your plea," Aeon didn't blink, "then I'll still be the one who chose to kneel beside it first." Outside, Thorn was still waiting, motionless, silent, but not unaware. And when the chamber doors opened and Aeon stepped into the dust again, it turned its head toward her. Not as a patient, not as a protector, but as something very few humans had ever dared to call a creature like this. An equal. The world didn't change overnight, but the orders did. A week after Aeon stood between Thorn and the firing squad, United Interstellar Command suspended the extermination protocol for Growlithe-class organisms. In its place, they authorized something unprecedented. A pilot initiative titled **, the Behavioral Observation Accord. It wasn't peace. It was permission to watch instead of destroy. And they gave it one name, Project Kneeling Stone. The camp was established in the basin of the Vierline Fault, a cratered no-man's land scorched by decades of artillery. It had once been ground zero for the first Growlithe offensive. Now it was something quieter, a beginning, not a fortress. Not a prison, just a cluster of biodomes and portable medbays surrounded by sensors, shield posts, and cautious eyes. At its center stood Aeon Kara. The official designation was Lead Xenomedical Liaison. Unofficially, she was the woman who stitched the monster's wounds and made it bow. Thorn remained by her side, not tethered, not caged. It never tried to leave. Each morning it sat near the outer dome perimeter, silent and still. Its wound had healed, the scarline visible only in certain light. Its breathing was slower now, more stable. Aeon couldn't tell if that was because of her medical work or because the creature no longer expected to die every day. And one day, it didn't come alone. It started as a shadow in the storm, a smaller silhouette crawling across the fractured terrain behind Thorn's enormous frame. At first, Aeon feared another Growlithe had arrived, another adult, another unknown. The security teams flinched, but then the shadow stepped into the light. A child, no more than half Thorn's size, still rough around the edges, armor not fully calcified. Its eyes glowed the same shade of violet blue. Its limbs trembled. And then, slowly, it stepped forward and held out something in its clawed hand. A strip of moss, dried, cracked, carefully knotted into a spiral. Aeon blinked, and then without thinking reached out and accepted it. The child tilted its head. Aeon felt it, a flicker in her nervous system. A frequency, not words, not quite, but meaning, gratitude. Somehow, Thorn had taught the young one how to reach her asterisk. She swallowed hard. You taught it to say thank you. Thorn didn't answer. It didn't need to. They named the child asterisk care asterisk asterisk, short for asterisk careth va asterisk. The Growlithe term Aeon later learned meant those who mimic kindness. It stuck around. It helped. It learned to bring her instruments, mimic her movements. Even tried to imitate her smile, though the effect was more terrifying than charming. Still, Aeon laughed, and laughter in that place was almost an act of rebellion. Word spread, fast, first through the military channels, then the media. Monster Healer became a trending headline across 10 systems. Some called her a savior, others called her a traitor. There were protests, sabotage threats, demands for her recall. Campaigns to brand Thorn as a weapon in waiting. But amidst all the noise, something else rose quietly. Letters, messages, videos from medics, soldiers, civilians. My father was in the Bone Valley campaign. He said they never begged for mercy. Until now, if pain is what makes us real and they feel it, who are we to deny it? Thank you for showing us another way. Colonel Varen arrived 3 weeks after the project's launch. Not as a skeptic, but not yet a believer. Aeon met him outside the dome as Thorn stood nearby, unmoving. The colonel's expression was unreadable. So this is what we're doing now, he muttered. Teaching monsters manners. No, Aeon said gently. Teaching ourselves restraint. They walked together in silence. Eventually, they came to the edge of the medical wing, where Care was learning to mimic a neural stabilizer scan using a training drone. The colonel watched, arms crossed. That thing has claws sharp enough to cut through exosteel. So do humans, Aeon replied. Have you seen what we do to each other? And you think this makes it right? Aeon turned to face him. Do I think their past erases their crimes? No. But I don't think our fear should erase their future, either. He looked away. You really believe they have souls? She was quiet a moment. Then, I think, if something chooses to lower its head and let someone stitch its wounds instead of fight, it doesn't want to be a predator forever. The colonel didn't reply. But he didn't argue either. Over time, patterns emerged. The Growlithe that approached weren't all submissive. Some fled, some observed. A few died before contact. But Thorn and Care became symbols. Asterisk proof of concept that not every enemy needed to be eliminated to be understood. Aeon didn't try to convert the world. She only kept working. Every scar she stitched on flesh was a reminder. Humanity was never supposed to win by being louder, stronger, or faster. Only by remembering what it means to asterisk heal. In a debrief weeks later, a researcher asked Aeon, so what is HFY to you now? Dr. Kara, still humanity yeah, she smiled softly. Not anymore. Then what, humanity finally yours? Not for conquest, not for domination, just for the ones who remember what it feels like to bleed and choose not to. Cause more of it. 10 years had passed since the battlefield fell silent. Calixar VII no longer appeared in the red zone charts of the war maps. The planet had been removed from the conflict index, redesignated as a asterisk zone of emerging understanding asterisk. There were still weapons stored there, still scars etched deep into the rock. But they had long been buried beneath something else. Choice, at the edge of the Valley of Kneeling Stone, a single figure remained. Dr. Aeon Kara was no longer a frontline medic. Her uniform had faded into neutral tones. Her rebreather now exchanged for old-fashioned spectacles. She didn't carry a field kit anymore. She carried a *** journal ***, stitched leather, pages yellowed from time and desert wind. She spent her mornings beneath the half-ruined canopy of an old drop shuttle, now overgrown with creeping moss and half-claimed by the planet's rebirth. She spent her evenings in silence, sometimes watching Thorn disappear into the twilight, Care beside him. Both fully healed, both choosing not to leave even though they could. She didn't speak much now, but she wrote. Her journal wasn't a record of events. It was a ***testament***, a quiet remembrance of the first war where no shot was fired, and yet something powerful surrendered. Not an army, but a mindset. She titled it simply, The Wound That Listened Back. In it she wrote, "Pain is a language, we forget that. We've learned to numb it, suppress it, anesthetize it, sterilize it into digits and charts. But pain, real pain, was the first thing all sentient life ever shared. Not victory, not conquest, not pride, pain, and we only ever learned anything when we listened to it, not silenced it." At the first interspecies summit on Cali's Prime Asterisk, they read her words aloud. Leaders from 7 systems gathered, some human, some not. It wasn't perfect. Tension still simmered. Fear still flickered in the hearts of those who had once lost sons and daughters to war. But on the final day of the summit, a xenobiologist stood at the central podium, voice steady. Face broadcast across thousands of stations. She said, 10 years ago, we were ready to end the Growlith by fire. We assumed they could not learn, could not think, could not feel. But then came a medic who never carried a weapon, a woman who touched a creature's pain and asked not how to kill it, but how to understand it. She taught us, if a creature stops killing after being healed, maybe pain was its only language. Until someone listened. The crowd did erupt, they just nodded. Quietly, collectively, as if something ancient inside them had finally been given a name. Aeon wasn't at the summit. She watched from a field monitor, wind in her graying hair. The broadcast flickering against the curve of a rusted hull. Thorn sat nearby, gaze distant, still silent as ever. Care had long since left, to learn among both species, to walk where others had burned, to try to explain what could never be translated in words alone. Aeon smiled faintly, then flipped open the final page of her journal, and wrote, "Being human was never about who we fight. It was about who we choose to heal." Then she closed the book, stood up and looked at the sky. Her message, recorded weeks before the summit, was kept short. No ceremony, no rhetoric, just her face tired but calm and her voice low but unwavering. To those who come after us, you'll inherit more than maps and treaties. You'll inherit our mistakes, our fear, our silence, but also our choice ***. You'll be told that some lives aren't worth saving, that some wounds shouldn't be touched, that pain must be punished. Don't believe them. She paused, then continued. If you're human, don't ask how many lives you can save. Ask if, when one of them is not yours, you still choose to kneel and suture it. The recording ended. The silence that followed lasted far longer. Not because people didn't understand, but because they did. In the end, history would remember many things about the war on Calixar VII. The battles, the blood, the ceasefire. But it would never forget the woman who stitched a monster's wound and taught it how to wait. Because in a world built on strength and dominance, she reminded them, healing is the most defiant act of all.